that help.
Hey, welcome to our channel. If you don't know us already, we are the Abbotts, Kendra and John Abbott. John's an entomologist, I'm an ecologist, and we're both nature photographers. And today, John's going to take us out to our trap camera on our property here. It's our DIY version of a camera trap. It's a DSLR, and we've kind of compiled flashes, triggers, in a very cost-effective way to create a camera trap. And we'll show you all the ins and outs and what to be careful of, where you can save money. So I hope you enjoy this video. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. And as always, if you could like and subscribe to the channel, that really encourages us to want to make more videos when you do that. So if you could do that for us, that would be fabulous. Thanks.
One of several different camera traps that we have, camera trap setups that we have using an SLR. This one is kind of an older version, but I still deploy it because it actually works pretty well. Over the next series of videos, we'll show you some different triggers and different flashes that we use. But this one is pointed at the base of this nice white oak here, which is hollowed out underneath and makes for a great potential home for all sorts of critters that come in through here. So this particular setup, as you can see, which is working because Kendra just triggered it, is made up of the camera here, an SLR, which I'll take apart in a minute. I'm just using a cheap Rebel for this, inside a homemade container. I'm only using 2 flashes here. These are Vivitar 2800s. There's one on kind of either side, aiming low and up underneath into this tree hole. So what's triggering these 2 flashes is a Wayne or Vane sync link. I'll take all this apart in a second, but that's directly connected to the camera. And then what's triggering everything is a Snapshot Sniper passive infrared trigger. This is a DIY trigger that is super inexpensive and a great way to kind of get going with a setup like this without having to invest a lot in a trigger. Okay, so each individual piece, this is just a typical Loctite type Tupperware containers that I use to put the cameras in here. In this particular situation, I'm using a Rebel with a vertical battery grip to give extra battery life. And so I needed extra height in this particular container to put the camera in there. This is just a 3-inch plastic snoot that you can get like in the plumbing aisle, and I have just cut the bottom out so that if this acts as a sun shield and a rain protection, and then as water accumulates, it'll just drop right out of there. Camera and lens are not sealed from the elements. They are in fact open. I have used setups like this though for over a decade, and actually have had no loss to cameras or lenses because of this. Now, you can't put them, I have used this kind of setup in tropical environments and where I could check on it regularly, but you would need to be careful where you set it up. We'll talk about other sealed systems like the Cognisys Scout camera system, which is fantastic down the road. So what I've done is simply cut a piece of PVC pipe, use it as a ring that I can attach this sun shield to, and then in this particular setup, the top just lifts right up, and you have your camera and lens. I'm just using a little cheap 35 to 80 kit lens for this. Again, this is just a cheap Rebel as well, so trying not to invest a ton into a camera and a lens that I'm just sending out into the elements, and anything really could happen to it. I am triggering the sync link, the Wayne sync link, off of the hot shoe up here. So this is just corded. I have a little hole in the bottom of this Tupperware setup where everything is connected. So you can see here that I'm using RCA cables to connect the sync link. I have a little USB dongle. This is a handy way so you don't have to monkey around too much with receivers. This is just a USB dongle that sits under here, so I wouldn't even have to lift this off. I could just plug a USB cord into the bottom, use an iPad or a laptop to see what's on the camera and everything without even having to disturb it. Be aware of always is this when you're doing camera trap stuff work, especially in the southeastern U.S. Poison ivy. This is riddled with it, this environment right here, and I imagine we are going to pay for it handsomely. But anyway, we try
blood, sweat, and tears. Blood, sweat, and tears.
That's it. We'll try to be careful. The trigger is connected just with a cable here, because sometimes I have these way off. I've got a lot more cable than I really need for this particular setup. But again, it's just using a 1/8" stereo jack, and then I've got it plugged into the Rebel's remote trigger port. The trigger itself is another DIY situation. This is a passive infrared snapshot sniper that I'll show you in a little bit, but I just mounted it in this Tupperware container. I've got some desiccant in there. Looks like it needs to probably be switched out. And then I've just plastic welded some PVC onto the end of it, and kind of created more of a snoot so that it can be more directed. Because I don't want things in this particular setup triggering this that are off real far to the left or the right. You can actually program these things.
So it just narrows the beam.
It narrows the beam, that's right. You can program these things, or you can use it right out of the bag, default settings, if you don't want to go into programming. And it is just a really inexpensive trigger. You just have to mount it into a case like this. And then on all of these, what I'm doing is I have mounted, and I'll show you inside, a piece of wood to the tops of these, and then use a 1/4" thread in the back of it so that I can screw them onto various tripod mounts. These Ultra Pods are...
How did you attach that wood? Was it just glue, or did you screw it in?
They're screws.
Screwed in.
Yeah, screwed in. The Ultra Pods are probably my favorite small little tripod for these kinds of things right now, because it's a tripod, but I mostly use them like this, where you can anchor them to a piece of wood. Oh, and you should note that where I use trees where I can. Here I have a stake that I put in the ground and mounted the camera off of a bogan clamp, just an extension off of that, and then on a ball head. Here using the Ultra Pod onto the piece of wood for the beam. And then the flashes are mounted to trees on either side. And these are great because you can just clamp them right to the tree. I'll show you up here with the Vane sync link. So this is just a great little tripod, makes for a great home for critters as well. But you can use them to anchor on to substrates like this. So I have even added Velcro to some of these to
make it a little longer.
Velcro twisted to make it a little longer if you're trying to go around a bigger tree. And then it's got a little ball head up here at the top. This is not suitable for putting a lot of weight, but for these flashes and the sync link, it works great. So there's actually a little bit of moisture inside there.
We found that living in Alabama, the moisture is a much bigger problem than even when you're in the tropics. So it's because it gets so cold at night. Or in the tropics, it stays a bit warm.
sync link, the way this works, and by the way, a little pro tip, I always label everything. So I have several of these sync links. I label them. That way, like 1, 2, 3, so on. That way, if I have a problem with one and I throw it in my bag and I need to figure that out when I get back, I will know which one is the problem because I can just remember what number it is. Basically, individualize your equipment that way. So if you run into problems, it's easier to troubleshoot if you've got multiples of them. So I had this cord I have the cord that came with the sync link just going through the box in the back, weather sealed. It plugs in, sits down there. I've painted the box but made a little window for it. I've got desiccant here.
We just painted it to have a little bit more
Cryptic.
camouflage
Exactly.
for it, so nothing thought it was interesting to play with.
Yeah, just make it a little bit more cryptic. Some foam to just kind of help keep things in place. And then snap it shut again. The flashes themselves, I'll show you more about those inside. But again, this is a Vivitar 2800 DIY. Pretty easy to do, and talk a little bit more about that inside. But I will show you, I've got it.
But you can electrocute yourself, so be very careful.
Well, when taking apart a flash, you do want to be careful with the capacitors because they do hold a whole lot of voltage.
So unless you're very comfortable doing something like that, we do not recommend that you do it.
So in order to power these, I've got this set up again on these weatherproof SAE connectors over here, and I can just plug a little AA battery pack onto the top of here if I'm needing to travel light. Or I've got these containers with a cord that brings it on down where I can put C or D battery packs in here to power them for even longer.
And that poison ivy was protecting it very nicely, so.
It was. Hopefully I didn't get it on me. And all of this stuff is interchangeable. So the idea is, I don't have enough hands here, but the idea is that this box is got SAE connectors on the inside, outside, weatherproof grommet there. So I can switch out these battery packs as I need to. I can use various lengths of extension if I need to. And then that connects to the flash. Or again, I can use a AA instead of one of these types. So a very versatile system in that way. Again, I try to put desiccant packs wherever I can. Usually flip this up just to make sure the batteries tend to stay in there.
Tetris again.
And then you can anchor these up, in a tree if you need to. That's in part what this Sherlock Velcro is for, but I also, most of the time, just set them on the ground down below. All right, let's see if we've got anything here. Armadillo, but a little bit low. Possum.
Okay, so we just took you outside to show you how we set up these DIY trap camera setups. And then next video we will show you exactly all the intricate little parts of the trigger, of the flashes, and how we've pulled them apart and what's going on inside. So if you're interested in that, stay tuned for our next video, and I'll put a little link up there as soon as we get it done. And like always, if you have any comments or questions, stick them below. We'd love to hear from you, and gives us ideas for other videos to do. And if you like and subscribe, that is awesome. It really encourages us to make more videos. It shows us that you like what we're doing. So yeah, thanks so much, and bye.